This is interesting for the Boston Celtics as we have seen sharpshooting wing Sam Hauser dealing with a back injury throughout the entire season. And it's opened up the question, is this more than we think? If the Celtics are struggling with a player in Sam Hauser dealing with these injuries, are they going to possibly need another player to step up in Jordan Walsh and Jaden Springer? Or will they have to make a trade or a possible move to increase that depth in Joe Mazzulla's offense? We're going to be looking at all of those possibilities and explaining all the possible scenarios and more in this episode of Celtics Digest. I'm Bruce Velez. Without further ado, though, let's dive into the video at hand. Make sure to grab a snack. And like I said in the introduction, this is interesting as we're going to be diving in and looking at the recent reports revolving around Sam Hauser and this back injury that we have seen throughout the entire season. It's been a topic that not a lot of people have dove in and kind of gotten into conversation. So I wanted to kind of dive in and kind of explore what could be happening, and if we do find out what is happening, is it a bigger issue than the Celtics are leading on? So we're going to be looking at Sam Hauser, looking at his stats, looking at all of that, kind of analyzing that. So as we all know, Sam Hauser was dealing with these back spasms since the start of the season into the offseason, and it was led on to believe by the Celtics that it was a minor issue. Sam was to miss a couple of the starting games at the start of the year and has missed some games sporadically here and recently. These back spasms have been coming back, and I think that this kind of injury is one of the Celtics are being extra precautious with, but something they're monitoring and mentoring. And if they can figure out that Sam is coming up with these early issues early on, they'll take that extra rest day to kind of make sure that he is okay. And the Celtics have done that over recent games. If we want to look the most recent performance here, we could obviously see when the Celtics did play versus the Chicago Bulls, Sam Hauser was out of that contest with those lower back spasms. And as we can see today, courtesy of John Corrales, the Celtics have recalled sharpshooting wing Baylor Shireman from the main G League, as he was already in Orlando playing in the G League Showcase. Sam Hauser, who was listed as questionable heading into tonight's contest versus the Orlando Magic, so he might be shooting insurance in case Hauser can't go. And we've seen players like Jrue Peterson as well kind of eclipse and be that shooter off the wing for the Celtics when Sam Hauser isn't ready to go. But with Sam Hauser once again being questionable going into tonight's contest, the Celtics, like John Corrales said, are making sure they have that extra insurance, which I think is necessary going against an Orlando team. Now, Orlando, pretty solid defensively, is without their two stars, doesn't have much shooting off the wing besides those guys in that wing column. So without Sam Hauser, I do believe the Celtics still could be able to beat the Orlando Magic, but it will still be a close matchup regardless. But I think the main issue here is looking as it's going to be a long-term issue for the Boston Celtics, because as we've seen throughout the entire season, Sam has been dealing with these back spasm missing games in the beginning, a little bit of a month in, and even now. So if this is a continuation, if this is going to be a problem that is going to be continuing through the rest of the regular season into the postseason, where Sam's going to have to miss some games in the postseason, specifically when he's used as one of the primary players coming off the bench, the Celtics might need that extra insurance. And playing a guy like Baylor Shireman or Jrue Peterson might not be that extra insurance that is needed in the playoffs, having a veteran ready, able to go. So the Celtics might have to keep their eyes on that and kind of look at that. So if we want to dive in and look at Sam's injury history so far with this Celtics team, we can look at this article where Sam Hauser has missed 2 straight games with back spasms and has played just 21 of Boston's 28 games this year with back issues, being a factor in a majority of those absences. Sam missed 1 due to personal reasons, I do believe, but 7 out of those games, 6 of them, where he has had to deal with back spasms. And this is a little bit of alarming, as Hauser only missed 5 games total over the last 2 seasons. So the reoccurring health issue for the 27-year-old has been a bit of a surprise this year for Celtics fans, including myself. And I think that's where a lot of people are kind of drawing this attention to it, is he's only missed 5 games in 2 previous seasons, but now has missed a total of 7 games just this year, which we're, again, only 28 games into the year. But if that's a little bit of a retro scale, going into 50 games in the year, he might have missed 10 to 15 games of those 50 games. And if you want to keep adding that, he could miss 15 to 20 games this season, if not more, going into the playoffs if it is a deep run. And who's to say that these issues aren't re-aggravated throughout the regular season or throughout the playoffs, that he'd be out for an extended period of time. So it ultimately asks the question, what are the Celtics going to do if this is a major issue? Now, personally, I don't necessarily know if it is going to be a long-term issue, I think it's something the Celtics are monitoring. But for me personally, I think it's becoming more and more alarming for Celtics fans, including myself, when Sam is missing more and more key games in recency. We saw Sam miss those games in the beginning, maybe thought it was a little bit of thing from the off-season kind of brushing off, now getting into the season. But now that it is reoccurring and still popping up, I do believe that does show some signs of possibility that the Celtics might need to strengthen that 3-and-D wing, possibly getting closer to this trade deadline. So I want to know your thoughts down below in the comment section all about that Sam news. But let's get into the next part. What is, if needed, what is the alternative? Because like I said, I do believe that the Celtics necessarily don't need to go out there right now and go out and make a trade for another 3-and-D wing at this very moment. But if we get to the closer and closer to the trade deadline after January, getting closer to February, and Sam is still missing games or still dealing with this issue, then I do believe by the trade deadline, the Celtics will look to acquire another 3-and-D wing to help them. Now, if we want to look at the Celtics roster here, we obviously know that it's a little bit difficult to do some of these moves and try to get some of these out, which is kind of crazy. Now, for um Jaden Springer, he is one of those players, in Jordan Walsh, that are two of the players that could rise up and could be those players to kind of take over for Sam. And we've seen Jordan Walsh get some running, get some opportunities with the Celtics team as a pretty solid defender, but hasn't really stepped up and delivered on the offensive side as much and hasn't been given as much leeway off of his leash from Joe necessarily. So ultimately, I do believe that Jordan Walsh can step up and necessarily isn't that true guy to be that deliverer for the Celtics team at this very moment come playoff time. Now, in a couple months, Jordan Walsh could clearly change that spectacle, and I'd be really, really happy for him to do that because I've been a big believer in Walsh and thinks he deserves that O'Shea Brissett kind of role, 3-and-D wing, extra wing off the bench. But ultimately, at this very moment, I don't believe Joe's giving him enough playing time to render that, to assure him that, which ultimately leaves him to possibly pursue some trades. So we're going to be looking at this tweet here, courtesy of Jake Eisenberg on the First to the Floor podcast. I saw Jack and Sam broke this down as well in their recent video on How About Them Celtics, Jack Simone and Sam LaFrance. So go check their video out as well. Saw a little bit of a snippet of theirs on their Twitter here, kind of breaking it down. But Jake came up with some pretty solid trade pieces, and we're going to be going over them and kind of analyzing which ones do we like, and ultimately asking you guys the question, which trade would you guys like if you're the Celtics? Now, we came up with some different tiers for some of these tradable contracts, and as we all know, with the Boston Celtics, if they are going to make a move, if they are going to go out and get somebody, it is going to be somebody with that Jaden Springer deal. Most of these players are locked up on contracts, and with being the Celtics being a second apron team, trading out Jaden Springer's contract of trading out his contract of $4 million. The Celtics have to take something back less or equal value. So it's a little bit restrictive for the Celtics, but if we want to look at some of these names, he mentions obviously these two guys in Santi Aldama and Jake LaRavia as his dream guys, but not obviously getting them. I think maybe last season with the Grizzlies being towards the tank, obviously not rebuilding, but kind of getting into that youth movement. I think a player like Aldama would have been a little bit easier to acquire, as he was mentioned in rumors as well last season. But unfortunately for the Grizzlies, who are a top team in the West, I don't see them moving off of either of these pieces. He also mentions Justin Champagnie, and I want to mention, I don't know if Jake meant Julian Champagnie from the Spurs or Justin Champagnie from the Wizards. I don't really know much about Justin Champagnie, but Julian Champagnie was pretty good for the Celtics when he played here at the end of the rotation, found himself as a solid defender and shooter for the Spurs. He could be a guy that they could go out to acquire to bring back. He also mentioned some other names as well on this list, guys like Alec Burks, guys like Javonte Green, Garrison Matthews, Torrey Craig, and I do believe that some of those names would bring some help for the Celtics. Alex Burks, Miami, if they're willing to move off of him, could be a nice guy as a nice shooter. Javonte Green, we all know, is a true Celtic, one that fans still do appreciate, and he would be that gritty, grimy wing that could play some solid defense in that O'Shea role, but also be stepping up as a shooter. Torrey Craig has been linked, and we've broken him down on this channel multiple times, as he could be a solid 3-and-D wing to replace Sam Hauser or add some more shooting for Sam Hauser if he's dealing with some injuries. And then Garrison Matthews, a little bit of a gritty, grimy guy as well. I believe he played with the main Celtics or was with the Celtics G League or in Celtics training camp at one point, but Garrison has worked himself to a scrappy end of rotation deal, and I think he could be a guy who could be brought in to be a scorer off the wing as well, while also being a solid defender. He also brings up the fact that you could just dump Springer's contract and bring in a player like Lonnie Walker as well. But any other ideas, anything that you guys let me know, think about trades for a possibility if the Celtics are looking to add with having Hauser dealing with these injuries. Let me know. I think that some of these names are very solid. All the ones that Jake listed, from Alec Burks, Javonte Green, Garrison Matthews, Torrey Craig. I like all of those guys personally. If I'm the Boston Celtics, I think a player like Torrey Craig could be that guy. I think Springer could value himself a lot in Chicago. And I also think a player in Javonte Green could also be a guy, specifically if Springer gets moved to New Orleans and they're still trying to believe in that youth movement. He could be a nice defensive guard that they could grow alongside Jose Alvarado as well. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Like I said, not necessarily any bad news with Sam at the moment, but it is something to keep an eye on, and it's something to monitor as we go through the season. Let me know your ultimate thoughts and how you guys feel about this Celtics team. They play the Magic tonight, and then they got a game on Christmas Day at 6 p.m. I'll try to get a post game for you guys. I will let you know that there's most likely not going to be a video tomorrow, as I will be busy on Christmas Eve, and with the holidays coming up, it will be a little bit busy. So if there are no videos tomorrow and Wednesday, I do apologize. If there are videos that come out, they might be a little bit lackluster. They might be a little bit rushed, and I do apologize for that. But I want to let you guys know to have a great holiday, have a great Merry Christmas if you do celebrate Christmas, and to enjoy it with your family if it is near, as I will be doing the same. And I can't appreciate you guys so much for the love and support you guys have given us over on the channel throughout this entire almost 2 years that we've been doing this, a year and a half, a little closer to at this point. We've gotten almost close to 6,000 subscribers, which you guys have been absolutely fantastic with. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of the year, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, and peace out. Go Boston Celtics.